What's up, Visionary? I am your host, Clee Davis, your vision actualization mentor, here to help you break down your vision building barriers. And I am back for season 3 of the show. I am super excited to get into this season with you guys. So much good content coming up in this season. And today, on the first episode of season 3, we are going to be talking about overcoming the fear of failure. I remember one time I went to church one weekend with my girlfriend, and one of the members at the church that knew her but not me so well asked me what I do for a living. I immediately got a little tense and nervous and started to trip over normal words, and it wasn't because I didn't have a good occupation or a good job. I had a career, I had income. Why was I fearful? The truth is, I had a fear of failing this lady's expectations. Of course, as a boyfriend would, you want to make a good impression on your girlfriend's circle of influence. Would she approve of me being a radio producer? Would she approve of me being a podcaster? Would she approve of me being a vision actualization coach? Does she even know what this stuff even means? I had a fear of failing her expectations. Fear of failure doesn't always mean being afraid to fail at something. Sometimes it means you're afraid to fail someone, somebody, or even yourself. Do you have a fear of failure of something? If you're listening to this episode, I'm assuming that you do, and most of us do, so it's completely normal. So what is this fear of failure that you have? And how do you and I overcome this thing? Because one of the most common things coming between you and the vision you are building is fear. So I brought on the show Pierre Quinn, leadership coach, speaker, author. He wrote the book Leading While Scared, How to Find the Courage to Keep Going. And he kind of breaks down this thing of overcoming the fear of failure. You guys are going to love this episode so much. We get into some really good stuff that anyone can apply to their life. All right, Sonexa, can you please pull up our visionary profile?
Loading. Visionary profile. Pierre Quinn. Hometown, Pontiac, Michigan. Occupation, minister, speaker, coach. Founder of the Cardell Group, helping emerging leaders courageously begin the journey to personal and professional transformation. Author of Leading While Green, How Emerging Leaders Can Ripen into Effective Leaders, and Leading While Scared, How to Find the Courage to Keep Going. Billboard quote: "There is someone that won't get the help they need until you start doing what you are called to do." For weekly visionary value, subscribe to the show. Enjoy.
I was like, fear is really rational. Like when you think about it, we have fear because God created us in this way. It's to protect. It's a protective, it's a survival mechanism. You need to be afraid in order to survive. And every time you're afraid of something, there's probably some type of rationality to it. Whether it's, makes sense is another thing, but it's still rational. I mean, if you don't want to get onto, a bike, it's because you may fall and hurt yourself. Right. That's rational, right. But the chances are you might not as well. So it doesn't make sense necessarily. But everything is rational. So when I was thinking about it, I was like, okay, if every fear is rational, then it's okay to be afraid, right? So this is just the thought process I was going about. And I kind of just want to get into this question with you straight off the bat. Like, the question I keep hearing is, how do I overcome fear of failure? Not just fear, but fear of failure. Because with visionaries, the one thing that holds us back so much is the feel of not succeeding. Yeah. Because it's our baby. It's like we want to get there so bad. The fear of not getting there is terrifying. How do we get into overcoming the fear of failure, Pierre?
Man, I think one of the initial steps is reframing how we think of courage or bravery. I think our perception of courage and bravery are off. And I remember watching a movie, The Secret Life of Pets 2, right? I took my kids to see that.
I wanted to see that.
Oh man,
And,
so I can't ruin it for you.
No, it's not that big of a deal.
Okay.
But I wanted to go see it, and then I realized, like, I was so late. Like, it wasn't even theaters anymore. I was like, oh, dang.
Okay, so there's a scene in the movie where the main character, if you haven't seen the movie, I won't ruin it for you, but the main characters end up on a farm with other animals. And on the farm is this farm dog that's this legendary, brave leader that really takes care of the farm. And there's this one section of the movie where they have to go on this adventure to save another one of the animals. And the main character's like, I'm so scared. Like, I'm so scared. And he says something to the effect of, the secret to being brave? Pretending like you're not scared. What I drew away from that is that we frame this whole bravery and courage thing wrong. Bravery, courage is not the elimination of fear. So when we talk about let's get over fear, a lot of times we're saying, how do I totally get rid of fear? That's not courage. Courage is to continuing to take a step even though I am scared. Right. The fear is never eliminated. It never goes away. Every time I speak, every time I present, even driving up to your place so that we could do the podcast, a little apprehension, are the words going to come off right? Am I going to make sense? Will I stumble? Will I knock over a microphone? Bravery, courage is, I know I'm embracing that I'm uncomfortable, that I'm uncertain. I'm even embracing the possibility that something adverse may happen, but I'll still take the chance anyway. And once we embrace this idea that fear is always going to be there, it's never going away, the emphasis is, will I keep pushing even though I feel those feelings? I think that can help us reframe how we feel about fear and courage.
Yeah, that's definitely a good point, because fear is not going to go away.
It's not going anywhere.
It's not going anywhere. And I think also one thing that you also have to do when saying that it's not going away is realize that it's there. And I know we realize that fear is there for certain other things, like if you're afraid of the dark, or I'm scared, I'm afraid. Yeah. But when it comes to fear of failure, or certain things, especially like in business or in your personal life, sometimes you don't realize that the actions you're taking are because of fear. Mm-hmm. Like for me, right, reaching out to a certain guest. Mm-hmm. I know that's something that I struggle with a lot. I'm like, no, I don't want to. And I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, I'm rationalizing, like I said before, rational, why it's not a good idea. And to me, I'm not afraid. I'm being smart. I'm being, what. But when I really write it down, like, well, what's going on here? Why am I not moving forward? I'm afraid. Yeah. I'm scared. Yeah. And it's the acknowledgement that you are afraid and you are suffering from fear. That I think might be also the first step as well, acknowledging it.
And part of it also is tracking what is really going on behind the scenes. So if I had to guess, I would say you probably weren't wrestling with the potential rejection from that famous person, from that famous guest. It was probably triggering something that happened in your past that is recurring. So anytime you think about a new scenario, a new project, a new endeavor, you go back to what I described in the book is this concept of the scared little kid. It's something that happened to you in childhood. It doesn't necessarily have to be in childhood. It could be in high school. It could be in college when you first started your career, that made you it traumatized you in some way. It doesn't have to be huge, but it left an indelible mark on you. So now anytime you face a similar situation or a similar context of uncertainty, you say, man, when I was in a place of vulnerability and I couldn't protect myself, I promised I would never allow myself to feel like that again. So part of not feeling like that again is not putting myself in situations to feel like that, even if it means stepping away from things that are successful, that are virtuous, that are good for us. I don't want to go there because I will feel again that I'm vulnerable and I can't take care of myself. So a lot of times we self-sabotage.
Yeah. And I guess you have to kind of take a step back. Yeah. That will never happen without self-reflection.
Right.
So So acknowledging that the fear is there, and then taking a step back to saying, okay, why am I afraid? And you could kind of go back into say, okay, well, I feel this way, and then, well, why do I feel this way? And you could realize, this happened when I was a kid, or this happened in the past, or even recently, and I never want to feel this way again. And if I do, then that would be it for me. And I don't want to end it, so I'm scared. I don't want to have to get to that point where I have to, so yeah. And then you also did this other thing. So the past trauma that we could go through. And then I know in the second chapter, you said, change your diet.
Yeah.
Change your diet.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's kind of more of in the present.
Right.
So like, what are you currently consuming that could also lead into the fear? And the first thing I thought of when you said change your diet was social media.
Yeah.
We consume so much information that, I don't really get into politics on this show. But there's two major things that will always have America move.
Yep.
And that is money and fear. So a lot of the things that we consume are, I don't want to say fear tactics. I don't want to get into conspiracy theories on here, but a lot of it is to ensue fear in order to make change, right?
Listen, man, we can go there if you want to go there.
And even with the stuff, I follow you on LinkedIn. I follow you on Instagram. I follow Eric Thomas. I follow Gary Vee. I follow Grant Cardone, right? And we see these people and they're doing these things that we aspire to, or that we look up to them or something like that. And that fear of, if I mess up, I may not get there, or, whatever it is that they're not intentionally putting fear into you, but it's still like something in your subconscious that's like, I don't want to mess up. I'm not going to do it because I'm not as good as them.
Yeah.
So I don't want to put it out there because I'm going to look like trash compared to what they're. So what are you consuming? And it doesn't have to be negative. It could be something positive that you're consuming that's feeding into you not moving forward. So that's the first thing I thought of right after the break when you said change your diet.
Man, when you think about it, the people who we emulate or who we look up to, the version of them now, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0, they when they first started, they were trash. I mean, let's deal with the reality that when they first started, they were trash. I mean, if you go back, if you look at Gary Vee's stuff when he first started Wine Library TV, it was horrible. When you go, a guy that's popular in the tech space,
MKBHD.
Yeah, if you go back 10 years ago, 12 years ago to his first video where he's talking about a laptop, I think.
Through his laptop camera.
Yeah, and it had a little remote.
I've seen it, yeah.
If you look at him now, you're like, who is this person? This guy is amazing. He's sponsored. He's polished. Back then, so we a lot of times we try to judge. It's so unfair to us and even unfair to the other person. We try to judge where we are by where they are. And that's why I'm a big advocate of, and I talk about this in Leading While Green, having people as mentors, coaches, and supporters who are not only 100 steps ahead of you, but you need some people 5 and 10 steps ahead of you. Because when you look at them, that seems a bit more achievable than, okay, Gary Vee, MKBHD, ET have millions of followers on social media. You only have a couple hundred or a couple thousand. You're not going to get there overnight. And then we discount the number of years that they've been working at this thing. I remember when I was pastoring in Kentucky, 2 small churches, and I would come home Sabbath afternoons or Sundays on the weekends, and I would watch other preachers in their churches. And it got to a point where I had to stop, because I was envious of where they were. They had larger congregations. They had great praise team, great music, great website, a great feel to it. It was a different worship experience. And I would go to my little churches thinking, man, this is terrible. Like, I want to be where they are. So I had, part of changing my diet was even some of the people I appreciated and emulated, I had to decrease my consumption of their content, because I was not using it for edification, for growth, for strategy. I was just using it for envy and jealousy reasons.
Yeah.
And that was a bad diet for me.
Or sometimes even an excuse to not move forward. I'll never get there, so I'm not even going to try.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
I end up spending all my energy living vicariously through what I see other people doing. And I tell people all the time, for as much as you consume and as much as you critique, you need to be willing to create. Like, that's a big thing. As much as you talk about people who aren't good or you could do it better or back in the day or whatever, you should have something that you're willing to put on the table for people to do that same thing about you. And sometimes it's easier because we're afraid of people critiquing our work. So we don't make that nudge.
Oh man, that's good. And then these first 3 chapters were just bangers for me, right? So you said, first one, address the scared little kid, the past traumas that you could be influencing your current fears, right?
Yeah.
And then curtailing, changing your diet, what you're consuming, how is that affecting, what you're afraid of, and how you move forward and how you lead. Then you said embrace your value in chapter 3. And that might have been the biggest game changer for me personally. Being in this space of self-improvement and business and broadcast media, knowing your value is super duper important. One, for if you're a business entity, you have to know your value or else you're going to get taken advantage of.
Absolutely.
Secondly, when you're talking to people, this is a very communicative type of field. You got to talk to a lot of people all the time. If you can't explain your value to them, they're probably not going to value you. Unless somehow type of way you're able to express that value through something else other than your speech. And I struggle with that so much. I looked at myself, I was like, I know I have something, but I wasn't able to articulate it. Once I was able to articulate, and this is a recent victory for me. Once I was able to articulate exactly what I could do and how I could help and why I was valuable to others and to the world we live in, my confidence went like this. And I realized that's so important. That was like the beginning of so many of my fears. I didn't want to go talk to that person because I didn't know how I was going to make them realize like it was worth talking to me because I didn't know my value in the first place. I think that's so important.
Man, a lot of times we get frustrated in what we're doing and how it's moving along. Let's take the school you graduated from, Oakwood, right? And there's a lot of creatives that go to Oakwood, right? So they can sing. They're good visual artists. They have some talent or ability, fashion design, graphic design, whatever the talent, speaking, whatever it is. From the outside in, and you would have to give me clarity on this, sometimes from the outside in, it looks like a crowded space because a lot of people are doing the same thing, but we're not good at communicating how I do what I do is different than how other people do what they do. So speaker A, speaker B, speaker C, we're all speakers or we're all preachers or we're all good at giving workshops, and we all do that. Okay, what makes you different from that? What do you bring to the table? Because we buy based on perception of value. We buy based on perception of value. And it's a huge example of in recent history on the change in perception of value and the Champion brand.
Yeah. Yes. I used to get played for wearing Champion, man.
Bro, when I could get, growing up, we had this place called Kmart.
Yes.
Okay? And you could get Champion at Kmart.
Yep.
The other day, or maybe it was a month ago, I was in the mall and I saw Champion had a collaboration with Timberland. Yeah. So it was the Champion logo at the top of the boot and the Timberland tree on the side. And I was like, man, we've come a long way. Because the perception of and I don't know how it started. I don't know if it was some social media influencer, some person in a music video. I don't know how it started. But once the perception of the value of the brand changed, everyone was willing to pay more for that same item That same sweatshirt that was $20, when the perception of the value changed, people were willing to pay more. It's the same with us. And it goes back to self-reflection. That perception, when your personal perception of your value changes, you will carry yourself differently, and then the world around you will adjust to how you carry yourself. Recently I had a person reach out to me, and they said, hey, we want you to come to the Seattle area and to do a workshop, a 3-hour workshop for us for our event at our conference. And we were talking back and forth. I was familiar with the space. I was familiar with the industry. I'd worked in that industry before. And they said, how much for you to come out? And I gave them a number, and you could hear it in their voice. What? You could hear it in their voice. Now, before, when that happened, I would have said, well, this is my price, but, I can do this, and I can discount, and I can do it, and I can make it work. And I didn't do that. They said, well, we're going to have to talk to our team and see if this could work for us. And I said, oh, I understand this is a part of the process. Get back to me. They emailed me the next day, and they said, Mr. Quinn, we appreciate your offer, what you shared. You would be a great fit for our group, X, Y, and Z, but we can't afford your rate. So I got two options. I can go back and try to negotiate or come up with, and there are options of how to do it, or I could just let it go. I chose to let it go because this is my value. Mm-hmm. And even if that means missing out on opportunities that could be good, but not great, for my value, for my brand, for other people's perception, and for how I perceive myself, I got to know it's okay to walk away from some things.
Yeah, and I want to get into two things off of that. The first one being, from that practice, I'm pretty sure it'll be easier to do it the next time.
Absolutely.
As well.
The first time I did it, though, I was scared.
Yeah. I know I would have been.
Fear. And courage is doing it even though you're afraid. One of my coaches told me, they said, when you put your offer on the table, shut up. Yeah. Be quiet, because the next person that talks loses in negotiation. So just be quiet. And I'm so afraid of not getting the deal or the project. I want to come and massage and make you feel better for not having enough money and give all these concessions. And then when I go and the perception of my value has been undercut, I'm upset now. Mm-hmm. But I chose to do it, even though I know that my value wasn't viewed the same way by the organization that I viewed it. So, but I was scared the first time, and the second time, and the third time, and the fourth time. But it got easier as I continued to do it.
Yeah, and the second thing is, okay, and I'm always thinking in the eyes of the ears of the listener.
Right.
Eyes, ears, I don't know. And the always thing I say when I'm listening to these shows, okay, I need to embrace my value. How?
Yeah.
How do I discover? Because if I haven't been able to find it for this long, how do I get there now? So what are some things that you could do to kind of just like look inward and find, even in a crowded space? Yeah. And that's so often the case. Very rarely are you in the most niche market possible. It's often a lot of people doing what you're doing, but you still could differentiate yourself. How do you dig into those things?
There will always be other people doing what you're doing, and there will always be space for you to do what you're supposed to do. So part of it is that self-evaluation piece. I'm big, like in all of my leadership stuff, I'm big on self-evaluation. I'm big on self-reflection. It's foundational for me. So going back and assessing skills, talents, abilities, experiences. Skills, talents, abilities, experiences. And charting those things out. Walking through them. So you sang with a world-class, let me just flip it a little bit. You sang with a world-class choir, right? For how many years?
4 years.
4 years. Now, what were some of the things that experience of 4 years of being in a world-class, award-winning international music group, what are two or three things that it taught you?
Oh man, it taught me so many things. Well, first thing is, we won a lot of competitions while I was in the choir. So the first thing I always say, and I said this on the last podcast I was on, it was a choir podcast.
Okay.
It taught me how to win. I saw step by step what it took and how much work and how to go about winning. I had never been a part of that process before. Of course, I've won things on my own, but it's a little different, especially when you're younger. But as an adult, in a space where competition is fierce, how you win. Second thing is I got to travel the world and I got to experience all types of different cultures and people from all races, languages, creeds, whatever.
Yeah.
So that's something that is just irreplaceable. So those are two off the bat, easy.
So we got two off the bat from just a sliver of your experience in singing with this particular group. Now you could pivot that, right? You could pivot that and say, as part of your brand, vision and actualization coach, you can market something like that to maybe college club presidents. Okay. Let me teach you how to win. These are the 4, 5, 6 principles that I discovered in being a part of an award-winning international traveling group. And these principles also work for your club, for your team. What's the value of that? What's the value of that? Like, and you can, whatever it is, the social value, adding to your social channels, the monetary value to do that workshop, the dollar amount to coach individuals who are in that space as leaders. But just from one of your experiences, we quickly determine that you have something to contribute to the rest of the world that you may not have even thought of before. Yeah. And just like that, when you start talking in the language of, this is the experience I do have, now the next time you look in the mirror, it's, you go up a notch in your own perception. Wait a minute. I never thought about that experience, and it is valuable. And I know people that struggle with how to win or how to turn their organization around or how to be a young leader or how to lead in different cultures when you're not in familiar surroundings and you still have to perform at your best. Like, all of that is a part of who you are and something that you can communicate. So it's you got to go through your skills, your talents, your abilities, and your experiences and mine them and dig in them to see what can you draw out that the rest of the world always also needs to know and can be improved by listening to. Yeah.
Wow. That is so good. I feel like that if any, that little clip of the show, that's going to help so many people. And moving forward, the other part of the book that really stood out to me was talking about friends, when you're saying strong friends. So once you realize your own value, right, you got to surround yourself with like value around you, right? Mm-hmm. So from what I took from it, and it doesn't mean, people, they say you are the average of the 5 people you hang out with or whatever like that, which I feel like that's true. Yeah. But I'm not a part of this. I don't want to be a part of this cancel culture either, where people are just like, oh, yeah. I'm like, look at yourself first. Shut up. Anyway.
No, for real.
But surrounding yourself with strong friends that are, I feel like more so are going to support you no matter what, plays a lot into the whole fear game. Mm-hmm. Friends that, are kind of only roll with you with your successes are not good for your facing your fear of failure. So I know a couple people who are around me, whether I am, picking up litter around the city, they're going to support me in that no matter what. Like, they're not going to look at me any differently, whether I was doing that or whether I was speaking to 10,000 people on the stage, right? Yeah. I feel like that's so important moving forward with fear of failure. I kind of want to get into, that was my take on it. What exactly were you trying to say when you were saying surround yourself with strong friends or find strong friends?
Yeah, this whole idea, this whole adage of pull yourself up by your own bootstraps is trash. Like, that's not reality. I remember reading an interview with Floyd Mayweather, and he was talking about how he was a self-made man and how he did, so many things on his own. And I started thinking about, wait a minute, but what about your trainer? What about your nutritionist? What about your driver, or what about your accountant? What about all of these people who don't get the limelight, who don't get the spotlight, who have been an integral part of pushing you and challenging you in your success. And if you only have people around you, and this is especially for my inner city kids, for my first time at any college or university, for my first time graduates, we have to learn how to adjust the frequency of our relationships and just the intensity of our relationships. So we may be friends for a long time, but if you find that our goals are not aligned, that doesn't mean we shouldn't be friends anymore. I should just probably change the frequency of how much time we spend together, because I need to be around people who are not just going to take from me, but who will also push me and challenge me, and who I can also conversely push and challenge in their goals. If it's one-sided, it's not really a friendship. It's manipulation. So one of my best friends, one of my closest friends, I talk about him in the book. We've been boys for a long, long time. And we've seen, I don't even know honestly why he's my friend, because I was a horrible person in high school and college. Like, I did nothing worthy of retaining friends with my attitude and disposition. But I spoke recently at the Bellagio Hotel in Las Vegas. It was, for me, one of my best speaking gigs. And he drove over from California to be there in the audience when I spoke. And after it was done, he didn't look at me differently. He didn't look at me like, wow, like, dude, you're so X, Y, and Z. It was like, okay, cool. Ready to go eat? Right, yeah. And then after that, and the rest of the day, he was like, okay, so what's next? What are we doing next? What's the plan? What are we looking forward to? So a friend that knows you, that's not overly impressed by you, and who won't let you settle for what you've done. That's what I mean about surrounding yourself with people, with good friends, solid friends, stable friends. You want people who will call, because he also calls me on my BS. Like, when I'm messing up, he's like, "No, man, you said you were going to do this. I don't care about social media. I don't care about all these people who say you're a great speaker or leader, whatever. No, you need to do this." And that's the value. And then conversely, I can do the same thing for him. Bro, where you at? Yeah. You know, he now is moving up in real estate in California. He has some amazing things on the horizon. He hasn't released it to social media, so I can't say it yet, but impressive work ethic. And people think all these things about him. And I can call him and say, man, you slipping. That's the dynamic of our friendship. And we hold each other accountable. And we've watched the result of having that type of relationship. Now, I know people who, no disrespect, like, we're just kick it friends. Yeah. Like, we just kick it. We're not like trying to build and grow each other. It's just a social thing. But the people who are really, really close to me support what I'm doing wholeheartedly, and I support what they're doing wholeheartedly.
Man, that is good. I feel like every person needs someone who's just like, they're immovable yeah. in their view of you. Like, you're always going to be the same person to them, and they love you just for that person. Yep. That's great. And also, the next thing is, you said this is a terrible place to end your story.
Oh man, yeah.
And I feel like that friend would be the person to also say, like, dude, you're not done yet. Yeah. Like, keep moving forward. Your story's not going to end here. And I feel like it's kind of like a positive fear almost. So like the fear of, so a big fear that I know a lot of the people who I speak with struggle with is the fear of never getting where they know they should be. Yeah. Right. So you're like, dude, my gifts and talents that God has given me, I should not be stuck where I am, right? I should be moving forward. But also having the fear of, settling to keep pushing you forward, I feel like is a positive one. But that just stuck out to me of why stop now, right? So if you get to one step forward, now I've embraced my value, right? I'm able to speak with people and tell them what I do and be confident in what I do and the value that I can offer. Okay, why stop here? Now I need to be able to, expand and do this and do that and move forward. why stop here? And this is a terrible place to end your story is, I think, a key element of keep moving forward in your leadership process.
So I'm a bit of an eclectic music fan. I like a lot of different genres, just kind of whatever fits me at the time. You know, this past weekend, my dad and I, it was really funny. We were on FaceTime and we were having an old school gospel battle. Mm-hmm. So he would play some old gospel song from the 60s and I would play when we were going back and forth, just laughing at the different musical styles that we like. And so I like all genres. And one of the groups that I listen to now is For King and Country. It's a contemporary Christian band. And they have, I don't remember the title of the song, but basically, it's not over yet. Everyone hits their limit. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. It's not over yet. And that's kind of the resonating theme through the song. And sometimes you just need that reminder that it's not over. Like you may feel like you're down or you lost, but it's only over if you quit right now. A huge part of that is when you talk about not being where you feel like your gifts, talents, and skills should take you or you should be. It's going back to that self-reflection piece again. Evaluating, is the goal your goal authentically? Is that your goal? Or is it your parents' goal? Yeah. Is it your friend's goal? Is as a person of faith, is this the goal, the direction that God wants you to go? Or are you just latching on to this because you haven't done that deep self-reflective work? Deciding the things that you're aspiring to do, are they authentically what you're called to do? And that's my faith talking. Or is it just because you saw something shiny on social media? You saw something cool on YouTube. I tell people all the time, they say, man, I want to be a speaker like you. Are you sure? Because you see clips, you see YouTube clips, you see Instagram posts, but there is a part of this that is just flat out work. It's flat out rejection. It's and there are different ways of trying to get to where you're trying to go, but I've sent out thousands of emails. I've called people on the phone. I've had doors proverbially slammed in my face of people saying no, or you're not good enough, or why would you charge that, or you're not a good fit, or just all of that is a part of this journey. And unless I was willing to embrace those parts, I mean, to be a social media influencer, yeah, you can buy 1 million followers. Yeah, but sooner or later it's going to come out in the wash. I mean, let's look at Kylie. She supposedly had millions of followers on social media, but she can't sell her product because there's no authenticity there. She did not take the steps to becoming an authentic influencer. So it's having some negative impact financially on her. But who wanted her to become that influencer? Was that her goal? Was that family tradition? Was that societal pressure? What was it? So part of it is embracing with the combination of gifts, talents, skills, and experiences that I have. What are the goals that resonate with me versus what even the culture says I should be doing with those things?
Yeah, for sure. I feel like that's so, like, people. I ask people, and I don't. Depending on the relationship, I don't always question it.
Yeah.
But I say, well, what do you really do? What do you really want to do? And they say, I want to do this. And I'm like, are you sure? Because and when you talk about something that you really want to do, you could tell. You could tell and I was just like, are you sure you want to do that? Or I always ask why? And sometimes I just do it to, have them start thinking. They might not ever tell me. And I don't really, it's not my place for me to know. Right. But to at least get people thinking. And that's something I really had to do for myself. So I'm coming from a personal place with it. I didn't know what the heck I was about to do when I went to college. I was getting a degree because that's what you're supposed to do. You're supposed to get a degree.
Well, a friend of mine, he's a chef in New York, in one of the best restaurants in New York. He always knew that he wanted to be a chef. But I believe he got a degree in general studies just because his mom wanted him to get a degree. His goal was to be a chef. He got that degree, and general studies, and he went and figured out how to be a chef because that was his goal. And you see his work. He goes Instagram live a lot in the kitchen, showing others how he works, and he is a phenomenal chef. But that was his goal, and he was even willing to tell his family that this is what I'm going to do. And that's hard. I've taught classes where students have said to me, Mr. Quinn, I don't really want to be a doctor or a lawyer. I want to be a teacher. But if I tell my parents that, they won't pay for school. So the fear, even that fear of telling your parents, this is the dream that I think God has put on my heart. We end up spending years in misery. And then you end up at 40, 45 with a midlife crisis because you did not take the courage at an earlier stage in life to stand up and tell the world, this is what I'm called to do, and I'm going to do it no matter what.
Yeah, and I feel like there's not one size fits all for that.
No.
There's so many different ways. And when it comes to that, do not listen to a podcast and go do something.
Listen.
Disclaimer.
Right.
There's so many variables that go into facing that fear in a smart way, in a God-led way that he wants you to go about it and do, because that's literally terrifying, just me thinking about it. And I feel like there's facing your fear, and once you do all this stuff and realize where you want to go internally, but that external application is a whole nother ball game of how you go about it. But,
Absolutely. I'm not afraid. I'm uncomfortable with the thought of having like a mega church. That's uncomfortable for me. I am completely comfortable with the thought of impacting 100,000 people. Some of these mega churches, the impact that they have in their community, 100,000, millions of people. Like that idea, the reason why I'm uncomfortable is because I recognize that that's not in the vision for my life. And part of me has dealt with what every other, if you grow up in an African-American church and you can speak well, the assumption is you're going to be a pastor. And that the zenith of helping people, of quote unquote ministry, is congregational ministry. That's the height of it all. But then we talked about individuals before who it's clear in their lives that they're helping people, but they don't follow that traditional prescribed way. And I think sometimes for those of us who have gone into pastoral ministry, sometimes and I've seen a lot of changing conversations. Some people went into it because they were afraid to tell their family at the time, this wasn't what I wanted to do. I'm a second career pastor. I chose this after having a career, so I knew what I was getting into. But I can just tell when I talk to people, you're doing this because culture says you should do it, because your family, because your dad was a pastor, because it's the popular thing to do. This isn't really on your heart and it's coming out in your work, all because you were too afraid back then to say something, and now you're too afraid to say something, and the rest of the world is just waiting for you to stand up and find your courage.
Yeah, and I feel like the longer and farther you go into it, the harder it will be to dig yourself out. I mean, you've gotten so far. Yeah. It's like, dang.
It becomes your identity.
Yeah. And then once you get rid of it, it's like, now, what am I now? Like, you have to basically start from scratch with reshaping who you are as a person.
I mean, it happens a lot also in the professional sports. Yeah. In that arena. You've been playing football, basketball, hockey, whatever, since you were 5, 6, 7 years old. Then you become a professional. Professional athletics doesn't last that long, depending on your sport. 6, 7 year career. If you're a running back, the average career, I think, is like 5 years. What do you do after that? Because your entire life you've played football. Now you have to find what this new version of you likes, what it enjoys, what you can acclimate to. And that's why I tell everyone, even if you have a career, something you're passionate about, you should also continue to explore the other interests that you have, because you never know when you may have to pivot. And it's going to be scary because you've only known your life a certain way. But in terms of another fear of missing out, what would it be like to miss out on where you were supposed to be because you were afraid to change how you've always done things?
Feel terrible.
Like you would be one pivot, one step away. And it's almost heartbreaking to grow up and hear those could have been, should have been stories. Oh man, he was great. She was great in high school and college. They could have been something great. And some of the most disgruntled individuals, some of you even listening to this podcast may be disgruntled because you know where you're sitting and what you're doing is not what you're called to do. And you need to be willing to go through the self-reflection, to go through the evaluation of your journey, to go through surrounding yourself with the right people, and then creating an actionable plan to make the pivot, whatever that is. And sometimes that's not quitting your job. Sometimes it's reducing how much Netflix you watch so that you can put that time and energy into a hobby that gives you life, so that you can in turn be better in your job and in your family. So the courage is not always this grand display. Mary Ann Rodmacher, she's an author, she puts it this way: sometimes courage is just saying, I'll try again tomorrow. Sometimes courage is just saying, I'll try again tomorrow.
Yeah. Wow. And drawing this to a close, the last chapter in your book was drawing a picture of your courage, or drawing your courage picture. So, and you talked about, like a child drawing a picture of like where they want to be, or I forgot, it was a child reference in there. Mm-hmm. And I thought of myself, I have actually pictures somewhere in this house, somewhere. I'm pretty sure my mom's kept. She keeps everything.
Of course, my mom does too.
So of me, like I wanted to be a firefighter, I wanted to be an astronaut, all these other things, and then look at where we are now. But those were all genuine things I wanted to do at the time. Mm-hmm. And I really took it as when you said draw a picture of your courage. I thought, this is the brand I have, like draw a picture of your vision, right?
Yeah.
So I do this almost every day, like especially like in the shower. I don't know why, but in the shower, I'm
best thinking is in the shower.
Man, my brain is just like picturing what I always wanted to do, like what it's going to feel like, everything about it. And I feel like through me keeping like doing that over and again, and I don't know if you listen to, have you heard of Charlie Rocket? Charlie Jabley, I think is his name. He talks about this thing of quantum physics, kind of. He talks about, the quantum realm and and frequencies and all. So I'm like, man, that's the spirit. What are you talking about? Anyway, how when you put these frequencies into the air, it comes back full circle. Like if you keep saying that you're going to do this, if you write it down, if you like, those things manifest themselves in ways that you wouldn't have realized if you didn't draw out the picture beforehand. So that's really how I saw it with draw a picture of your vision, like visualize it every single day so that you have the courage to keep moving. You're looking at where you want to go. And that like musters up more and more courage for you to keep trying again, to keep picking it back up, to keep moving forward bit by bit by bit. Because you have a picture of where you're going toward, instead of, you're just frivolously going through one thing or the other without a goal that's in front of you.
I drew a sketch and I placed it in pretty much all around my house, and I sent it to my friends. And it was some things that I wanted to accomplish some big goals. I wanted to be 6-figure public speaker, wanted to travel the world, wanted to have digital learning platform so I could train other leaders and coaches. I wanted a house and all these other things, some of these material things. And I had it really just sketched out. I wanted to, take my family on 2 vacations a year. And and I put it all around my house. My kids could see it, didn't hide it, sent it to my parents and my friends. And what that did was it increased the level of accountability for me, but it also kept me focused. So on the days when things weren't going right, or I was frustrated, or I was annoyed, I kept coming back to a literal picture of what I was looking to accomplish. And then people started reminding me or asking, hey, how's that going? How's that aspect of life going for you? There's this idea in communication theory, and not just in communication theory, but that's where I learned it, of the self-fulfilling prophecy. And the self-fulfilling prophecy basically says the way that you talk about yourself, eventually that's how it's going to turn out. Yeah. So if you keep saying, I'll never make it, I'll never make it, I'll never make it, you won't make it. It won't turn out. I mean, not to get like super spiritual or anything, but a biblical concept, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. Like it's the same principle of, the whole putting energy or good words into the atmosphere. It's a biblical principle. The thing that you consistently think about, the way that you consistently carry yourself, what you mull over and over and over again, you will find some way to make that happen. Yeah. So if you keep saying, I will never be top 5 in Apple Podcasts, I will never be a world-class visualization and action coach, I will never, such and such will always be better than me, you will find a way, consciously or subconsciously, to sabotage in your moments of greatest success, so that you can be what you have continued to speak over your life.
Yeah. No, that's it's proven. Like when I talk how I want to, well, it comes with a certain level of practice as well. Yeah. It doesn't just happen.
Absolutely.
But like if I say, I'm a big basketball guy, right? So if I say, you know what, I'm going to play, like, I am a top defensive player. Mm-hmm. Now, I might not actually be a top defensive player in the reality of things. I may not have worked my butt off to actually be a but I will play significantly better on defense just because I said to myself, I'm going to strap this guy up. Yeah. Right? Yeah. Rather than me saying, I'm not really the best defensive player. That's not really my strong suit. I'm just going to, let that. If he gets by me, it's because he's more athletic. That's why. And he will blow past me every single time, rather than if I just switch the mindset of me speaking into what I want to do while I'm on the court. I
remember Kobe talking about that in an interview. And I like Kobe Bryant. I love his style. I remember him saying, if I miss the first shot, don't let me set up for the second shot. If I miss the second shot, don't let me get the ball for the third shot. If I miss the third shot, I'm knocking down the fourth shot. If I miss the fourth shot, you better triple team me. That idea that eventually I am going to make it. Eventually I'm going to make the shot. Doesn't matter how many shots I've missed. I know the one that I'm going to make is coming. But the only way to manifest that is to shoot. Yeah. And he had in his mind that I'm the best basketball player in the world, and every shot that I take is a good shot. Even when he would take horrible shots.
Takes horrible
it's a good shot. And that's the mindset that elevated him to being iconic. I believe in my heart, you put me on a stage with the top speakers in the world, I can hold my own. Mm-hmm. I can hold my own. Now, part of that is aspirational, getting to the place where when I'm on the stage with the best speakers in the world, I can hold my own. That's going to take work. That's going to take studying the industry. That's going to take resourcefulness. That's going to take mentorship. That's going to take some growth on my part. But I still believe, no matter what I got to do to get there, if you put me on the stage with the top, matter of fact, tell the top speakers in the world that I'm coming. Tell them that I'm coming. Yep. Tell them they will know my name, they will know my face, they will know my work, and they will respect what I do. And that's what I'm living by. And ultimately, in my next engagement, like you said before, in terms of basketball, ultimately in my next engagement, I will speak better.
Yeah.
Because that's the energy. As a man think, same biblical principle, as a man thinketh in his heart, that's where you're going to keep pushing yourself toward. And I also believe, man, your gifts will make room for you. Like, you respect, if you are a good steward of the talents, skills, abilities, and experiences that have been afforded to you, you will get there. But part of that is having the courage to speak positively about those things, even when you're not completely sure of yourself.
Yeah. And even when you speak those things, people are going to look at you like you're crazy.
Oh, yeah.
That's why it's so good to have those strong friends, because, like,
right.
Man, people are funny. Like, okay, so we all love Kobe now, right? He got an Academy Award.
He got a basketball academy.
Man,
he's probably first
Kobe
ballot Hall of Famer.
Great now. He's on everyone's podcast.
Everybody.
I've seen him on 3 podcasts this week. I was like, what's going on? Kobe, at one point, Kobe had legal issues.
Yep.
Kobe was getting into it with Shaq.
Yep.
Kobe didn't pass the ball.
Yep. He wanted to leave the Lakers,
But everybody forgot about that because now Kobe's winning. He won championships. So, like, people are gonna talk about you. People are gonna say, good luck sarcastically, or, maybe you should pipe it down a little bit. Who do you think you are? But when you start winning, when God starts to bless you, now it's, he knew all along. Yeah, I was there when he was in the church. So those strong friends, and just having that, where you want to go, what God has in store for you, and letting no one else, because it's gonna flip flop, man.
When I first started to say I wanted to enter this space of not just congregational ministry, but leadership development and speaking, I heard some strange things. I heard people tell me, why are you considering leaving the ministry? Congregational ministry is not the only form of ministry. For me, this is ministry. Like, the conversations that I have with people, very deeply spiritual moments. And I wish we had time to tell all of these stories, but people saying all of these things, why are you considering leaving pastoral ministry, or can you not handle it, and all of it, just crazy stuff that people would say. I put up a picture on Instagram this week of me speaking on stage.
Was it the one with, like, the purple background? Look, it was huge.
It was huge, yeah.
I saw it. I was like,
some of those same people years ago, 5-6 years ago, who said X, Y, and Z, are now saying, man, look at what God is doing with you. People will call you crazy. They will call you crazy. They will doubt it. You've seen all those memes and those animations that in the beginning people will laugh at you and do all these things and ridicule you, and it's that squiggly line. And then by the time you get to this side, everyone, the crowd is saying, I knew all along that you could do it. No, Kobe didn't care that we thought he was crazy. He is crazy.
He is crazy.
He didn't care. And now look, Academy Awards, multiple podcasts. He has his own academy. He's speaking. I mean, he's got a show on the ESPN app. I mean, all of these things from this guy, this 19-year-old who said that he was the best basketball player in the world. And look at him now. Courage.
Man, wasn't that some good stuff in that episode? Man, looks like you have some self-reflection to do. I have self-reflection to do after that. Look, if you were multitasking, weren't paying the closest attention, weren't taking notes, I want you to walk away with this thing if you got to the end of this episode. Embrace fear, then face fear, because you cannot erase fear. Fear is not going anywhere. Fear is natural, it's rational, but you can break down this fear into the 10 components that Pierre addresses in his book so that you can face the fear and keep building your vision and keep moving forward, even though you might be scared. The 10 components that you need to lead while scared and overcome the fear of failure will be posted in the Build Your Vision Mastermind Facebook group. If you are not a part of this Facebook group, you are missing out. We have exclusive content and advice like private Q&As, a community of like-minded visionaries, and exclusive BYV Build Your Vision offers. The links to the Build Your Vision Mastermind group and Pierre's book and anything else mentioned in this episode are in the show notes and description. On Friday, we will be diving a little bit deeper into this topic of fear and failure and going step by step on how you can overcome it, step by step. It's going to be a part 2 version of this episode. You don't want to miss that, so remember to subscribe. Until then, on Friday, keep building your vision every single day. Peace.